Have you ever felt that unsettling quiet of the countryside at night? That deep, dark silence where every little sound gets amplified? Most people think of the countryside as a peaceful escape, a place of rolling hills and idyllic farmhouses. But for those who've lived there, or for those who've just passed through at the wrong time, they know the countryside holds its own brand of terror. Tonight, we're venturing deep into those shadows, exploring chilling tales that have seeped into the very soil of these remote places. These aren't your typical haunted house stories. These are tales born from isolation, from local legends whispered for generations, and from the unnerving feeling that you are very, very far from help. So lock your doors, turn down the lights, and get ready. We're about to explore the side of the countryside you won't see on a postcard. Our first story comes from a user named Mark, who used to work as a land surveyor in the rural Midwest. His job often took him to properties that hadn't seen a visitor in decades. One afternoon, he was mapping a vast, overgrown estate that had been abandoned since the 1950s. The main house was a wreck, but his focus was on the far edge of the property near a dense patch of woods. As he was setting up his equipment, he noticed a small, dilapidated chapel tucked away among the trees. It wasn't on any of his maps. Curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to take a look. The door creaked open into a single dusty room. Pews were covered in thick cobwebs, and a film of grime coated the stained glass windows, casting strange colored shadows on the floor. At the front, on the altar, was a single, large leather-bound book. It looked ancient. Mark brushed off the cover and opened it. It wasn't a Bible or a hymn book. It was a registry filled with handwritten names and dates. But as he flipped through the pages, a cold dread washed over him. The entries spanned over 100 years, but they all had one thing in common. Every single entry was dated on the same day, October 31st, and next to each name was a single, unsettling word: harvested. He slammed the book shut just as a loud thud echoed from the back of the chapel. He spun around, his heart pounding. The heavy main door, the one he had just come through, was slowly swinging shut on its own, plunging the small room into near darkness. A faint scratching sound started, seeming to come from beneath the floorboards right under the altar. It grew louder, more frantic. It sounded like dozens of nails clawing at wood. Mark didn't wait to find out what the harvest was. He scrambled for a side window, shattered the colored glass with his tripod, and tumbled out into the dying afternoon light, not stopping until he was back in his truck and miles down the road. He never filed the report for that property, and to this day, he can't hear the word harvest without feeling a chill run down his spine. Next, we traveled to the misty back roads of rural Ireland with a story from a backpacker named Chloe. She was hitchhiking through County Cork, trying to get to a small coastal village before nightfall. A friendly, elderly farmer in a rickety pickup truck offered her a ride. He was full of stories about the local area, pointing out ancient stone circles and telling her about the good folk, the fairies of Irish legend. He warned her, with a twinkle in his eye, to never step inside a fairy ring, a circle of mushrooms, especially after dusk. Chloe, a city girl, just smiled and nodded, thinking it was charming folklore. As the sun began to set, the truck sputtered and died. They were on a lonely stretch of road, miles from anywhere. The farmer sighed, saying he'd have to walk to the next farm for help, which was about an hour away. He told Chloe to wait in the truck and lock the doors. As he left, he turned back and said, "Whatever you do, don't leave the vehicle. And don't listen to the music." Chloe was confused. Music? All she could hear were crickets. An hour passed, then two. Darkness fell completely. That's when she heard it. A faint, beautiful melody, like flutes and pipes, drifting on the wind. It seemed to be coming from a nearby field. It was enchanting, almost hypnotic. Despite the farmer's warning, the music was so compelling she found herself unlocking the door and stepping out. The air was cold, and the music grew louder, pulling her towards the field. In the pale moonlight, she saw it, a perfect circle of glowing mushrooms, a fairy ring. The music was coming from inside it. A strange compulsion urged her to step into the circle. It was an almost irresistible pull. But just as she lifted her foot, the farmer's final, serious warning echoed in her mind. "Don't listen to the music." She shook her head, trying to clear it, and that's when she saw them. Just for a second, in the shimmering air inside the ring, she saw dozens of pale, slender figures dancing wildly. They weren't charming or friendly. Their faces were thin and sharp, with eyes that glowed with a cold, hungry light. A wave of pure terror washed over her. She stumbled backward, ran to the truck, and locked herself in, pressing her hands over her ears to block out the bewitching tune. She stayed there, trembling, until the first light of dawn, when the music finally faded and the farmer returned with a can of petrol. He didn't say a word, just glanced at her pale face and the empty field, and they drove away in silence. Chloe learned that night that some folklore is more than just a story. Our final tale takes us to the desolate, windswept plains of the American Southwest. A young couple, Ben and Sarah, were on a cross-country road trip. To save money, they decided to camp out one night in what seemed like a vast, empty expanse of desert. They set up their tent as the sun bled across the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples. The silence was absolute, a stark contrast to the city life they were used to. It was beautiful, but also a little unnerving. As they sat by their small campfire, Ben noticed something odd. On a distant mesa, a single light flickered on. Then another, and another, until a small cluster of lights was visible. It was strange, as their map showed no towns or settlements for over 100 miles. They shrugged it off, assuming it was a remote ranch or a group of fellow campers. They went to sleep, zipped securely in their tent. Around 3 a.m., Sarah was woken by a sound. It was a low, rhythmic chanting, faint but steady. It sounded like human voices, but the language was guttural, unlike anything she'd ever heard. She woke Ben, and they both listened, frozen. The chanting was getting closer. Peeking through a small flap in the tent, they could see torches moving in the distance, descending from the mesa where they'd seen the lights. A procession of figures was slowly making its way across the desert floor, directly towards their campsite. Panic set in. They couldn't see the figures clearly, just their dark silhouettes against the flickering torchlight. The chanting grew louder, a hypnotic, unsettling drone that seemed to vibrate in their chests. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide in the flat, open desert. Their only option was to extinguish their campfire, crawl out of the tent, and lie flat on the cold sand behind a small rocky outcrop, praying they wouldn't be seen. They lay there for what felt like an eternity, hearts hammering against their ribs as the procession passed by. They were close enough now to smell the strange, sweet incense and hear the soft shuffle of feet on the sand. The figures were tall and draped in dark robes, their faces hidden in shadow. They didn't even glance in the direction of the tent. They moved with a shared singular purpose, chanting their strange litany as they walked past and continued into the endless darkness of the desert beyond. Ben and Sarah didn't move until the sun came up. They packed their things in record time, abandoning their tent and half their supplies, and drove without stopping until they reached the next major city. They never found out who those people were or where they were going, but the memory of that midnight chanting in the empty desert still haunts their dreams. From haunted chapels and enchanted fields to mysterious desert rituals, the countryside keeps its secrets well hidden. These stories remind us that when you strip away the noise and the lights of the city, you're left with something older, something wilder. Sometimes it's just peaceful silence, but other times it's something else entirely, waiting in the dark. What do you think? Do you have your own strange countryside experience? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and remember to be careful next time you find yourself on a lonely country road after dark. Stay safe out there.